The muffled sound of footsteps echoed over the frozen marble. The room, filled with imposing figures, seemed to sink under the weight of false smiles and sideways glances. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, walked among those men who, just days before, had sworn eternal loyalty, but now, behind his back, murmured betrayals. History barely remembers those lesser senators, those empty voices, but Marcus remains eternal. Because while they sought validation through intrigues and flattery, he sought something infinitely rarer, the approval of his own conscience. And it is in this deafening silence of disdain that the question guiding our journey today is born. Why do we still insist on seeking worth where we are merely tolerated? When we place our self-esteem in the hands of others, we become prisoners of an invisible prison. The ancient Stoics, with their almost forgotten wisdom, called this prison the tyranny of public opinion. To them, the true empire was internal, an unshakable domain where neither praise nor insults had any power. How many times have you shaped your words to be accepted? How often have you hidden your dreams for fear of judgment? Each small concession, though it seems innocent, cements, brick by brick, an emotional cell. And in this cell, the key was never in the hands of your judges, but always in yours. If the slavery to others' gaze is so insidious, how then can we find liberation? Perhaps no one answered this more forcefully than Epictetus, the slave who, even in chains, was freer than his masters. Imagine, whipped, humiliated, treated like an object, Epictetus understood that no one could control his mind and only his body. He said, "You can imprison me, beat me, even kill me, but you can never force my soul to surrender." This is the freedom we so often lose today. Lost in social networks, in circles of toxic friendships, we seek approval as if it were oxygen, and every like, every empty compliment becomes a polished, invisible, but brutal shackle. Imagine your life now as a mirror. But this mirror has been thrown to the ground and shattered into 1,000 pieces. Each piece reflects a distorted version of you. What your parents expect, what your friends demand, what strangers judge. And while you try to see yourself in those shards, your true image is lost. How can you trust your own essence if your reference is always others? Maybe, to begin rebuilding, something radical is needed. Stop trying to see yourself through others' eyes, and slowly learn to see yourself from the inside out. But how to do that in a world that constantly whispers, "Please others to be accepted"? The first weapon is recognizing the illusion. Whenever you catch yourself changing to please, ask yourself, am I betraying who I am to buy scraps of acceptance? This simple and brutal question exposes the trap. We are conditioned from childhood to seek applause, to fear silence. And yet, it is in silence, that uncomfortable, heavy silence that few can bear, that real strength resides. Seneca, the brilliant advisor to Nero, knew the poison of ingratitude like few others. Betrayed, unjustly accused, forced into disgraceful retirement, he could have begged for acceptance, but he chose inner exile. He preferred to remain faithful to his principles rather than bend to please those who did not deserve him. In the letter he wrote before his death, there is a phrase that still thunders for us today. He who depends on the esteem of others to live is already dead in life. If we wish to follow in the footsteps of these giants, we must cultivate a rare skill, strategic indifference. It is not about being cold, cynical, or arrogant. It is about wisely choosing where to invest your emotional energy, learning to say with serenity, "Your opinion of me does not alter who I am." Imagine building within yourself a castle where the winds of criticism and disdain beat against the walls and fall back, harmless. This castle, called apatheia by the ancients, is not made of stone but of self-knowledge. To visualize this, think of a crown made of sand. Someone with great solemnity places this crown on your head. At first you feel exalted, but then the wind blows and it disintegrates into dust. External validation is like this, fragile, ephemeral, illusory. Building your value upon it is like building sandcastles at the mercy of the tide. And who better to illustrate this inner strength than Abraham Lincoln? Criticized, ridiculed, politically persecuted, Lincoln did not mold his actions to be applauded. He stayed true to his values, even if it meant solitude and opposition. In the end, it was not his critics who entered history at team. It was him. This teaches us a precious lesson. It is not the noise of the masses that determines your legacy. It is the silent constancy of your principles. But after all, how to start practicing this silent revolution? A simple and powerful exercise. Every day, write down 3 things you value in yourself, regardless of others' opinions. 3 virtues, 3 strengths, 3 internal commitments. By reinforcing these internal roots daily, you will slowly become as unshakable as a tree that fears no storm. However, the pressure to fit in has never been higher than today. Modern society creates unattainable standards, demands constant smiles, instant applause. It is an exhausting marathon to be accepted. Resisting this is a philosophical act of rebellion, an act of courage, a Stoic act. Marcus Aurelius knew this. Governing a declining empire, surrounded by betrayals and sabotages, he wrote in his diary, never imagining that these words would be read by millions centuries later, that others' approval is like the scent of incense, pleasant but dispensable. Do not seek to be praised, be good, and that is enough. To make this practical in your day, I propose a morning Stoic ritual. Before leaving the house, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what do I want to achieve today? For myself. Do not move forward without a clear answer. This simple practice can make the difference between living under the reins of the world or walking on your own. And even if, sometimes, the temptation to seek approval returns, and it will, remember, the feeling of being accepted by others is like an echo in the desert. It sounds loud for a moment, then disappears into emptiness. If you build your worth upon it, you will live eternally thirsty. So what is true freedom? Is it being loved by all, applauded on social media, respected in every room, or is it being able to walk alone, head held high, even when no one is clapping? That is the freedom that few dare to conquer. The freedom born not from convincing the world, but from convincing yourself. At the end of his life, Seneca proved that dignity is invincible. Condemned unjustly to death, he chose to die in serenity. His executioners had power over his body, but never over his spirit. This is the kind of victory that no criticism, no disdain, no abandonment can steal. And now I ask you, when you look in the mirror today, which mirror are you using? Your own? Or the shattered mirror of others' expectations? Imagine for a moment a besieged city. Enemies circle the walls, attack the gates, shoot arrows and set fires. But within those walls lies an untouched sanctuary, a fortress that cannot be destroyed. So too must your soul be. In a world that tries to invade your thoughts, manipulate your emotions and break your will, it is essential to raise invisible walls. Not to isolate yourself from the world, but to protect yourself from its influence. The question now is, how do you build this inner fortress? How do you forge a soul that neither praise nor offense can corrupt? We begin by understanding a fundamental Stoic principle. You control only your actions and reactions. Everything else, opinions, criticism, expectations, the love or disdain of others, belongs to what is beyond your control. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." This seemingly simple phrase is a cornerstone of power. Imagine, By ceasing to fight what you cannot change, all the energy wasted on frustration is redirected toward inner growth, like channeling a river, from destructive flooding to life-giving force. The first step is to erect the wall of discernment. Visualize this wall built from great stones of wisdom. Each stone represents a truth you have internalized. Every time you receive criticism, ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, and it usually is, then, like a true guardian of your fortress, you let the criticism strike and fall away. No arrow can pierce a wall without cracks. No word can wound someone who has decided their worth is not up for auction. However, this practice is not achieved in a day, nor even a week. The Stoics teach that building the fortress of the soul is daily work, like cultivating a rare tree. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every day, like a careful gardener tending his plants. He did not write to be admired. He wrote to remind himself of what truly mattered. Perhaps it is time for you to start your own Stoic journal, recording each morning what is essential and what is trivial, what deserves your energy and what must be solemnly ignored. A powerful practice is negative visualization, called premeditatio malorum by the Stoics. Imagine yourself each morning anticipating the obstacles, criticisms, and disappointments that may arise. Not as a pessimist, but as a wise strategist reinforcing the walls before the storm. If you expect imperfection when it comes, you are already prepared. It's like going into battle already armored in acceptance and courage. But beware, this fortress is not built to harden your heart into bitterness. Quite the opposite. A true fortress allows you to love more freely. When you no longer need others' approval, your love is no longer a transaction, but a genuine gift. You love, forgive, and offer without expectation. As Seneca said, the wise man is self-sufficient, but still desires friends, not because he needs them, but because he delights in giving love. Another crucial point: your fortress will constantly be tested. With every contemptuous glance, every unjust word, the world will probe for cracks in your defenses. And it is then you must remember, to be wounded is often a choice. Offense can only harm those who carry it inside themselves. Imagine a soldier clad in golden armor. Arrows strike, glance off, and fall harmlessly. So too must your soul shine, protected, resilient, and free. History offers us real examples of this strength. Think of Socrates, unjustly accused and condemned to death for teaching others to think. In his defense, he could have pleaded, manipulated, sold his soul. Instead, he preserved his integrity. He drank the hemlock smiling because his spirit was already invincible. They could take his life, but they could not tarnish his soul. Now visualize your own fortress. See the walls, the towers, the inner courtyard. Ask yourself, where are there still cracks? In what moments do you hand over your peace to the enemy? In what situations do you allow others' opinions to dictate your worth? Identifying these weaknesses is the first step to strengthening them. Every time you resist a provocation, every time you stay calm in the face of criticism, you lay another stone in your fortress. Slowly but relentlessly. And remember, a fortress is not built alone. The ancient Stoics sought the company of other wise people, friends who elevated, not poisoned, the soul. Choose your allies carefully, surrounding yourself with those who value courage, autonomy, and truth. Silently but deeply strengthens your inner walls. Finally, understand that the fortress of the soul is not a destination but a journey. Every day you build, adjust, reinforce. There will be days when cracks appear, criticisms that hurt, rejections that echo. But remember, a wall does not fall with a single blow, and a truly free soul never surrenders to an unjust judgment. Thus, step by step, stone by stone, you become the absolute master of your own inner empire. Imagine a bonfire burning in the middle of the night. It lights, warms, and welcomes, but if left unchecked, it devours everything in uncontrollable flames. Emotions are like this, vital sources of energy that can either illuminate our path or consume our entire lives. The great challenge set before us, especially by those who walk the Stoic path, is not to extinguish the fire, but to master it. Coldness is not a virtue. Coldness is emotional death. The true wise person is not the one who does not feel, but the one who feels deeply without being swept away by the whirlwind of passion. The ancient masters understood this. Epictetus, when instructing his students, did not say, "Do not feel," but rather, "Do not be carried away." There is a vast difference between feeling the pain of loss and being consumed by it, between feeling the anger of injustice and letting rage dominate you. Mastering emotions does not mean building a wall of stone around your heart. It means becoming a conductor, like a skilled helmsman crossing rough seas without shipwrecking. The first step to mastery is recognition, admitting to yourself that intense emotions will arise and that it is natural. There is no shame in feeling fear, sadness, or anger. The mistake lies in allowing these emotions to seize the mind and dictate actions. Marcus Aurelius, even as the most powerful man in the world, wrote about his internal battles. Do not let your mind be dominated by bestial impulses, for then you will be just another slave of chance. And how can we recognize when we are being swept away? The answer lies in the body, shallow breathing, tense muscles, racing thoughts. These are clear signs that the rational mind is under siege from raw emotion. The secret is not to repress, but to observe. Like a scientist before an experiment, curious, attentive, but detached, imagine yourself as a sage by the riverbank, watching the raging current of anger or sadness flow by. You see it, you feel it, but you do not jump in to be swept away. Another powerful teaching comes from the concept of ataraxia, the tranquility of the soul. The Stoics sought a mind as serene as a lake at dawn, where no external force could ripple its surface. But beware, serenity is not indifference. It is not the absence of feeling, but the continuous presence of awareness. When we love and are betrayed, feeling pain is human, but allowing that pain to transform us into something bitter, suspicious, or vengeful is a spiritual defeat. Mastering emotions is feeling fully and choosing not to act blindly. Training for this mastery begins small: a rude glance, an unfair criticism, an irritating delay. Each of these moments is training ground for the soul. Instead of reacting automatically, take a deep breath, count to 3. Ask yourself, what would a wise person do now? Repeating this conscious pause strengthens the muscle of serenity so that in life's greatest storms you stand firm like a rock. Cicero, the great Roman orator, understood the strength contained in the unspoken word, the reaction held back, the impulse tamed. For him, self-control was the essence of true eloquence. The greatest victory is victory over oneself. Mastering emotions is, therefore, the noblest of victories, because it is the only victory that no one can take from you. However, caution is needed. Many, in seeking to master their emotions, fall into the trap of insensitivity. They become hard, cold, isolated. But the human soul was not made to be a barren desert. It was made to be a cultivated garden. And love, compassion, genuine joy are the most beautiful flowers of that garden. It is not about extinguishing feeling, but refining it, like turning a raw stone into a gem. For this, practice compassion with yourself. Accept your own moments of weakness without brutal self-judgment. When you fail, and you will, as we all do not emotionally flog yourself. Seneca teaches us to err is human, but to persist in error out of pride is madness. Every fall is a lesson. Every exposed weakness is an opportunity to reinforce your inner fortress. Remember, mastering emotions is like learning to dance with fire, close enough to feel its warmth, but never so close that you burn yourself. It is finding the balance where reason and emotion walk hand in hand, without one annihilating the other. When you reach this state, you discover a freedom so immense, so unshakable, that neither tragedy nor success, nor abandonment nor glory can take it from you. And it is at this point that the inevitable question arises. If mastering emotions is possible, then how can we transform our emotional scars into even greater strengths? Imagine a porcelain vase fallen to the ground, shattered into 1,000 pieces. For many, it would symbolize ruin, loss, and ending. But in Japan, there is an ancient art called kintsugi, where the cracks of a broken object are repaired with molten gold, turning its scars into marks of beauty and value. And what if we said your soul could be treated the same way? What if the pains you carry, those betrayals, rejections, failures, were not wounds to hide, but medals to display? The transformation of emotional scars into unbreakable strength is the noblest journey anyone can undertake. Emotional scars are inevitable, no matter how careful you are, how pure your intentions. To live is to expose oneself to the risk of pain. Marcus Aurelius, in the solitude of his imperial duties, reflected on this when he wrote, "Welcome whatever comes, for it is woven from the same fabric as you." In other words, it is not events that break us. It is our resistance to them. When we refuse to accept pain, it corrodes us. When we embrace it, it refines us. Turning a scar into strength begins with radical acceptance. Not passive acceptance, like someone resigned to silent suffering, but active acceptance, to look pain in the eye, understand it, and integrate it into your own story. Just as ancient warriors wore their battle scars with pride, as proof of their courage, so too must we view our wounds as living testaments that we have survived, and more than that we have grown. This transformation demands that we stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What can this teach me?" Every disappointment can teach resilience. Every rejection can teach independence. Every humiliation can teach true humility. But only if we have the eyes of a sage to see beyond immediate pain. In this sense, life becomes a grand academy where scars are the most valuable diplomas. Think of historical examples. Think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in a tiny prison cell, isolated, humiliated, treated as less than human. He could have emerged as a broken, bitter, vengeful man, but he did not. Mandela emerged as a moral giant. He turned his scars into bridges, his pain into alliances, his anger into compassion. His soul did not collapse. It expanded to touch the entire world. The secret to this transformation lies in a silent, intimate decision. The decision not to let pain be an ending, but a beginning. Every time a wound opens within us, it also opens space for something new to grow. Suffering does not have to be the tomb of our strength. It can be its womb. To practice this transformation daily, I propose a Stoic visualization exercise. Each night before sleeping, think of a painful moment from your day or your past. Relive the emotion without censorship, but instead of clinging to feelings of injustice or revolt, ask, "What can this moment strengthen in me?" Then imagine the scar of that pain being filled with gold, like in kintsugi. See yourself not as broken, but as someone beautified by the marks of struggle, and never forget, the deepest scars carry the most powerful lessons. The pain of rejection can teach self-love. The pain of loss can teach gratitude. The pain of betrayal can teach discernment. If we embrace this emotional alchemy, then every suffering lived becomes another brick in the construction of a truly invincible soul. However, it is crucial to understand that carrying scars is different from carrying resentment. Resentment is a disguised prison. It keeps us chained to those who have hurt us. Liberation comes when we accept the wound, extract its wisdom, and move forward lightly, unburdened by hatred. As Seneca said, "To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover the prisoner was you." Thus, you become something rarer than gold. Someone who not only survives life's storms, but uses every drop of the storm to build greatness. But now, a question lingers in the air, like a whisper against the newly built walls of your inner fortress. If our scars become our strength, how then can we protect this newborn strength against the silent temptations of the modern world, which constantly seek to pull us away from our essence? We live in times where everything seems designed to distract, anesthetize, and divert us. With every click, every scroll, every blinking notification, we are pulled a little further away from ourselves. It is an era of showcases, everyone exposed, everyone desperate to be seen, everyone fighting for others' attention, yet so few truly present within themselves. And it is in this noisy and empty landscape that the greatest challenge emerges for those who wish to build a strong soul, protecting it from the silent corrosion of superficiality. Imagine your soul as a torch lit in the midst of a constant storm. If you do not shield it with cupped hands, if you do not guard it with vigilance and tenderness, the relentless winds of the world will extinguish it. Marcus Aurelius, burdened with imperial responsibility and the temptations of absolute power, wrote to himself, "Keep yourself simple, good, pure, serious, unpretentious, and just, reverent toward what is divine and benevolent toward others." He understood. The real danger was not the barbarians at the gates of Rome. The greater danger lay within, in the distraction, in the forgetting of one's own essence. Protecting the soul begins with recognizing that superficiality is not merely an external phenomenon, it is an ever-present internal threat. The craving for approval, the fleeting pleasure of comparison, the seduction of vanity, all of these are cracks in the walls of our inner fortress. Every time we desperately seek validation, we weaken our soul. Every time we choose appearance over essence, we lose a fragment of our integrity. The first movement to protect the soul is the conscious cultivation of depth. This requires slowing down, breathing, reflecting. In a world where everyone screams to be heard, the true rebel is the one who chooses silence to listen to themselves, not the empty silence of apathy, but the fertile silence of introspection. Seneca advised reserving daily moments of solitude to examine one's conscience, like cleaning a fogged mirror. Without it, the soul grows opaque, confused, and vulnerable. Another pillar of this protection is discernment, choosing carefully what you feed yourself emotionally and mentally. Today, more than ever, we are bombarded with information, opinions, judgments, and fads. But as Epictetus said, it is not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. Agree, you can choose not to intoxicate yourself with the superficiality of others. You can choose to devote your time and attention to what is eternal, noble, and strengthening. For this, practice mental fasting. Each day, choose moments to disconnect from social media, sensationalist news, and hollow comparisons. Use that time to nourish your soul with deep readings, silent reflections, and sincere conversations. Imagine this fasting as cleansing a temple, driving out the noisy merchants and restoring the sacred to its place. And remember, protecting the soul does not mean closing yourself off from the world, but interacting with it without being corrupted by it. It means walking through the marketplace of vanities without selling your essence. It means smiling at the game of appearances without gambling your peace in it. It is understanding that, in a world that values packaging over content, being profound is a silent act of heroism. A brilliant historical example is Cicero, who, even faced with a decaying Rome where virtues were traded for positions and favors, continued to seek true eloquence and integrity of character. Even knowing that his resistance would cost him his life, he chose to remain faithful to himself rather than become just another empty face in a crowd of opportunists. His voice, more than 2,000 years later, still echoes, while the traitors of his time are forgotten. Thus, protecting your soul becomes a daily, silent, and stubborn commitment. It is understanding that each small choice, each thought you accept, each value you cultivate, each impulse you tame, is another brick in the construction of your inner eternity. But now, a new question arises, as powerful as it is inevitable. If we can protect our soul from noise and superficiality, how then can we live a truly meaningful life? A life that not only resists time, but transcends it. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine 100 years have passed since your last breath. The streets have changed, cities have evolved, new generations have risen, and yet your name, your ideas, your gestures still live in the invisible echoes of the world. This is the promise of a life that transcends time, not being just a grain of sand carried by the wind, but a rock that shapes the course of the river. Living in such a way that your impression cannot be erased by forgetfulness. But how, after all, can we achieve this rarest form of existence? The ancient philosophers knew eternity is not given, it is conquered. Marcus Aurelius, writing from the golden prison of his imperial duty, reflected, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." True immortality is not found in grand monuments of stone, but in the silent coherence of a life well lived. It does not lie in being famous in the eyes of the world, but in being unforgettable to the souls we touch. The first principle for transcending time is simple and brutal. Live according to principles, not conveniences. In a world of constant change, where what is praised today becomes shame tomorrow, only those who plant deep roots in the fertile soil of eternal values remain standing. Justice, courage, wisdom, temperance, these are the invisible pillars that sustain lives capable of resisting the erosion of centuries. But living this way demands courage. Courage to be unpopular. Courage to choose the hard path when the easy one tempts. Courage to do the right thing, even when no one is watching, even when it seems no one cares. Because, as Seneca said, virtue is sufficient for happiness. It needs neither glory nor the applause of the crowd. The second principle is to embrace the idea of service. A life that transcends time is one that becomes useful not only to itself, but to the world. Epictetus taught that every human being is part of a great living organism, and that each person's function is to contribute to the whole. Ask yourself each morning, in what way today can I make the world around me a little better? A smile offered amid bitterness, a word of encouragement cast into the darkness, an act of justice done without expectation of reward. These small gestures echo farther than any selfish achievement. Then comes the third principle, to accept death not as an end, but as a coronation. Those who fear death live bent, anxious, limited. Those who accept it live fully, vibrantly, refusing to chain their souls to fear. Marcus Aurelius saw death not as an enemy, but as a change of seasons, the inevitable blossoming of a seed. And living well means preparing every day for that final flowering, living so that when the last day comes, we can say, "I left nothing undone." It is fundamental to understand that transcending time does not mean exterior grandeur, but interior greatness. Many of the names that most impacted history, Socrates, Epictetus, Seneca, wielded no military power, governed no empires, and commanded no vast fortunes. What they possessed was something infinitely rarer, a coherent soul, a life that in itself testified to the wisdom they professed. To aid this, I propose you start a new ritual. Each night, ask yourself, did I live today in a way that makes this day worth remembering? If the answer is no, do not punish yourself. Correct your course tomorrow. If the answer is yes, sleep peacefully, knowing that stone by stone, you are building something greater than your own existence. Examples like Abraham Lincoln, who united a divided nation, Marcus Aurelius, who ruled through plague and war without losing his soul, and Epictetus, who even as a slave became one of the greatest masters of inner freedom. All show us that time respects, even reveres, those who live with purpose and greatness. And thus, a new and stirring provocation arises. If we are able to live in such a way that we touch souls we will never even meet, how then can we choose daily actions worthy of this eternal legacy? Imagine that every action you take, no matter how small it seems, is a seed thrown into the soil of time. Some will grow into great trees that will offer shade to future generations. Others will be scattered by the wind, forgotten. The question we must carry in our pockets every day, like a compass for a long journey, is simple and brutal. What am I planting today that deserves to be remembered tomorrow? How can we consciously choose daily actions that build not just our own lives, but an invisible legacy that will survive our absence? The ancients knew. Character is forged in small acts, repeated in solitude, far from applause and witnesses. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, true greatness lies in being great in little things. It is not isolated grand deeds that shape a legacy. It is the small choices, made with virtue, accumulated over time like drops carving stone. The first step to acting daily with eternal purpose is full awareness of the brevity of life. Memento mori. Remember death. Not as a somber burden, but as a spark that illuminates your choices. Every gesture, every word, every decision is unique, unrepeatable. You can waste it on vanity and distractions, or you can mold it into something worthy of echoing beyond your physical existence. Ask yourself, in each situation, if this were the last act I performed, would I be proud of it? This simple question has the power to cut through illusions, purge excuses, and realign your will with your highest values. Do not wait for tomorrow to be just, to be honest, to be courageous. Each today is the sacred field where eternity is sown. A historical example that shines like a beacon is Leonidas, the Spartan king who, knowing he faced certain death at Thermopylae, chose honor over survival. Every step, every command, every blow was made with the awareness that posterity might judge him. And it was precisely this choice, at the moment when everything seemed lost, that immortalized his name among the heroes of humanity. Another secret to building a daily legacy is to act beyond yourself. Practice silent generosity. Not the kind that seeks recognition, but the one that feeds on the pure joy of serving. As Seneca taught, no benefit is complete if the benefit is remembered. When you help someone expecting nothing, desiring no applause, your action fuses with eternity, escaping the traps of human vanity. Furthermore, choose excellence in everything you do, even in the simplest tasks. The Stoics despised the cult of mediocrity. To them, sweeping the floor with dignity and attention was as noble as ruling an empire. For excellence is not found in the grandeur of the task, but in the greatness of the soul performing it. Choose to do what must be done with spirit, with presence, with love. Adopt as well the daily habit of gratitude. Not superficial gratitude, but the profound kind that recognizes the gift of simply being alive and aware. Gratitude sharpens our perception toward what is true, toward what truly matters. Those who are grateful for what they have act with respect for life, and those who respect life build a legacy of hope and strength for those who come after. Finally, remember, the choices that seem invisible today, like listening to someone with full attention, like resisting the temptation to lie, like forgiving those who do not deserve it, are the golden bricks of the path you leave behind. There is no neutrality. You are either building or you are destroying. And time, relentless and fair, will gather your footprints to compose the memory the world keeps of you. And now, a new question arises, inevitable as the sunrise. If life is this silent race toward eternity, how can we deal with the fear of making mistakes and yet act with courage every single day? There is a shadow that haunts all those who wish to live with greatness, the fear of making mistakes. It whispers in moments of decision, paralyzes us before opportunities, and builds invisible walls between us and what we could become. The fear of failure is, perhaps, the greatest executioner of dreams. But what if we told you that for the ancient Stoics, making mistakes was not the real enemy? That the only true failure is to live chained by fear, never daring to try. Stoic courage is not born from the certainty of victory, but from the serene acceptance of risk. Epictetus, with wisdom forged in pain and servitude, reminds us, it is not what happens that disturbs a man, but his opinion about what happens. To err, to fail, to stumble, these are merely events, neutral. What gives error its destructive power is the judgment we attach to it, the label of unforgivable failure that we were taught to fear. From the Stoic perspective, a mistake is just information, a step, not an abyss. To deal with the fear of error, the first step is to change your relationship with mistakes. Stop seeing them as stains on your story. Begin to view them as a strict but fair teacher. Mistakes are not signs of inadequacy. They are the tools life uses to shape us. Each time you fall and rise again, it is as if you are polishing another layer of your soul, revealing the purest essence within you. Marcus Aurelius, in his solitary meditations, wrote, "When you are confronted with failures, do not rage. Ask yourself, how can I respond to this in the best way?" That question changes everything. Instead of drowning in shame or paralysis, you turn your focus to action. The attention shifts from guilt to growth, and in that quiet transition lies the full strength of the Stoic, to act, to learn, to refine, without ever abandoning oneself. Stoic courage is built on the acceptance of vulnerability. To act with courage is not to act without fear, it is to act despite it. It is to look into the unknown and say, perhaps I will fall, perhaps I will fail, perhaps I will be ridiculed, and even so, I choose to move forward, because the true tragedy is not falling, it is never having tried to walk. To strengthen this courage daily, I propose a practice of gradual exposure. Each day, do something you fear because of the possibility of failure. It can be small. Start a difficult conversation, express an idea, try something new. With each act, you weaken the invisible chain of fear and strengthen the muscles of conscious action. Like a sword being forged with every hammer strike, your courage becomes sharper, stronger. Another powerful tool is rational anticipation. Imagine the worst-case scenario. If you fail, visualize the consequences objectively. In 90% of cases, you'll realize that what you fear is neither fatal nor permanent. Most mistakes result in temporary discomfort, not eternal ruin. Knowing this cuts at the root of the internal drama that paralyzes so many. And remember, error, when met with serenity, teaches resilience, when met with humility, teaches wisdom, and when transformed into conscious action, becomes the forge of an invincible life. The stories of great men and women are written with chapters of failure, regret, and reinvention, and it is precisely this that makes them worthy of remembrance. So, when facing the fear of error, repeat to yourself like a silent oath, "I do not fear falling, I fear not rising." And every time you stumble, use the ground as a push to rise even stronger. And now a new question creeps into the folds of the mind. If we can act with courage in the face of failure, how can we cultivate true inner freedom, the kind that makes us masters not only of our actions, but also of our thoughts and desires? Close your eyes and imagine a man chained, isolated, beaten, and yet smiling serenely, as free as the wind. This image, almost impossible to modernize, was real in figures like Epictetus, the slave philosopher. For true freedom is not achieved by breaking iron chains, but by breaking the invisible chains of unruly desire, irrational fear, and dependency on external approval. Cultivating inner freedom is the masterpiece of human existence, the only revolution that once conquered can never be taken away. The first stone of this sacred edifice is the radical awareness of what is within your control and what lies beyond it. Marcus Aurelius teaches us, "Accept everything that happens to you, for it is woven into the fabric of life by the same hand that wove you." You do not control what the world thinks of you, nor the circumstances you will face along the way, but you always have power over your attitudes, your thoughts, and your reactions. And this mastery is the true scepter of the Stoic kings. Understanding this changes everything. While we strive to control the uncontrollable, others' opinions, immediate success, the absence of suffering, we are slaves to illusions. But when we withdraw our energy from these futile battles and reinvest it in mastering ourselves, we begin to experience a freedom so profound that not even death can erase it. This inner freedom demands that we guard our desires as a general guards his borders. Unchecked desires are like traitors within the walls of the soul. The desire for approval, for easy comfort, for fleeting fame, all these are dangerous seeds of servitude. Seneca warned, "If you wish to be free, reject unnecessary desires. It is not the possession of goods that enslaves man, it is the unbridled thirst for them." To cultivate this freedom, I propose a brutally honest exercise. In the silence of your own conscience, list everything you believe you need to be happy. Then question each item. Do I truly need this, or was I taught to desire it? You will discover that many of your most fervent desires are merely reflections of others' expectations, not expressions of your true nature. True freedom is silent. It does not shout, does not flaunt, does not need to prove anything. It is an internal fire that warms without consuming, that illuminates without blinding. It is the ability to smile amidst the storm, because peace has already been won within, regardless of the chaos outside. Another essential pillar is the daily practice of self-discipline, not as a chain imposed by an inner jailer, but as a loving training of the will. Each small act of discipline, waking up at the promised time, keeping a given word, resisting a destructive impulse, is like one more brick in the construction of the fortress of inner freedom. And more, true freedom is not isolation. It is connection without dependency. It is the ability to love without losing oneself in another. It is the ability to serve without becoming a slave. It is the ability to lead without falling into vanity. As the great sages knew, anyone who is emotionally dependent on applause or rejection is still a prisoner, even if surrounded by adulation. Think of historical examples like Socrates, who, when unjustly condemned, could have fled, could have renounced his principles to save his own skin, but he chose to drink the hemlock, smiling, because for him, a life without fidelity to the soul was not life. It was mere empty survival. By cultivating this inner freedom, you become like a deep-rooted tree. Your branches may bend to the winds of criticism or praise, but your roots remain firmly anchored in the soil of your conscience. And it is this anchoring that will cause your presence to silently transform every environment you touch. And now, before this silent conquest, another question approaches like a new dawn. If we manage to free our souls from within, how then can we lead and inspire others to do the same, not by imposition, but simply by being an example? There is an invisible force that moves crowds, that awakens the best in sleeping souls, that crosses time without needing applause or eloquent speeches. The silent example of a life well lived. To truly inspire others is not to convince, not to argue, not to manipulate. It is simply to be. It is to walk with such integrity that those who observe feel in their own hearts the call to become greater than they are. The greatest form of leadership is the leadership of being. The ancients knew words can be forgotten, promises can be broken, ideals can be distorted, but the living presence of a coherent soul is like a lighthouse on a dark night. It calls no one directly to itself, but it illuminates the path for those who wish to see. Marcus Aurelius, ruling over a decaying empire, did not need to shout to be remembered as one of the greatest leaders in history. He simply lived his principles, writing, reflecting, acting in silence, trusting that true influence comes from character, not from propaganda. The first secret to inspiring others is absolute coherence between what you believe and how you act. In a world where so many speak of values but live in contradiction, coherence becomes a rare and precious gem. And it is precisely this rarity that creates true magnetism. When your actions mirror your words, when your life is a natural extension of your convictions, you become, without even realizing it, a living invitation for others to transform themselves. But a word of caution: inspiring others does not mean carrying them on your shoulders. It is not about dragging or forcing anyone. Every soul has its own time, its own rhythm of awakening. The true inspirer plants seeds, waters them with example, and trusts nature to do the rest. As Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Another pillar of this silent inspiration is humility. The true sage does not place himself above others. He walks alongside them as an equal who has simply walked certain paths before. Arrogance repels, humility attracts. When you admit your flaws, share your lessons, and do not hide your struggles, you create a safe space where others can grow without fear of failure. The third secret is patience. Inspiring is a long, invisible, and silent work. Often you will not see the fruits of your example immediately. Perhaps you will not even see them in your lifetime. But like a tree scattering its seeds to the wind, you will be participating in something far greater than your individual existence: the invisible current of human transformation. Think of figures like Cicero, who, even facing the cynicism and corruption of his time, remained faithful to the ideals of justice and liberty. Even though he was silenced by violence, his words and his actions echoed across the centuries, influencing generations of thinkers, leaders, and citizens. True influence is not measured by popularity in the moment. It is measured by the depth of the roots you plant. To live in an inspiring way, practice daily vigilance over your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Ask yourself, if someone were silently observing my life today, what would they learn? Do not strive for perfection. Strive to be authentic. Strive to be courageous. Strive to be a living example of what you most admire in the great men and women of history. And then a new question rises, like a mountain on the horizon. If we can inspire through silent example, how can we also find the strength to rise again when we fail and disappoint those who look up to us? At some point along the journey, as certain as the rising sun, we will fail. No matter how vigilant we are, no matter how firm our principles may be, at some moment we will say the wrong word, make the wrong decision, act in ways that, looking back, we will wish we could undo. The fall in this journey of the soul is not the exception. It is an essential part of the path, and it is in this dark moment when we disappoint ourselves, and perhaps those who were inspired by us, that the true Stoic is revealed, not in the instant of glory, but in the instant of ruin. The ancients knew that greatness does not lie in perfection, but in the ability to rise again. Seneca said, "It is not that the wise man never falls, it is that he rises stronger after each fall." What differentiates the wise from the foolish is not the absence of mistakes, but the way they respond to them. While the foolish drown in shame and surrender, the wise turn every failure into a ladder to climb even higher. The first step to rising again is to face the error with brutal honesty, without masks, without excuses, without detours. Recognize the failure. Look it in the eye. Do not minimize it. Do not rationalize it. Saying to yourself, "I was wrong," is paradoxically one of the most liberating acts there is, because within sincere recognition lies the seed of transformation. Next, it is necessary to practice wise self-compassion, not lazy compassion that justifies everything, but courageous compassion that understands that making mistakes is human, but remaining fallen is optional. Marcus Aurelius advised treating yourself as you would a dear friend. Correct yourself firmly, but without cruelty. When we fall, we deserve a strong hand to lift us, and often that hand must be our own. Another crucial aspect is making peace with those we have disappointed whenever possible, not to wash away guilt, but to restore truth. A sincere apology, an action that demonstrates real remorse, a humble posture toward the harm caused. These acts not only help repair broken bonds, but also heal our own soul. However, we will not always be forgiven. Not every effort to repair will be accepted. And this is where Stoic resilience must shine brightest, understanding that true repentance must be born from the search for inner truth, not from the need to be absolved by others. You must forgive yourself, continue your path, and accept that external redemption may never come. True redemption lies in living in such a way that the mistake is never repeated. Practically, adopt the ritual of nightly reflection. Before sleeping, revisit your day as a general reviews the battlefield, without illusions, without self-pity. What was done with honor? What could have been better? And, facing your failures, draw concrete corrective actions for the next day. Do not carry the weight of the mistake like a stone on your back. Use it as material to build the next stage of your inner fortress. Historical examples show us that the greatest men also failed. Lincoln suffered humiliating political defeats. Cicero was exiled. Seneca, at one point, became entangled in the court intrigues that would later destroy him. None were spared from falling, but all rose again. All used adversity as a purifying fire to forge even greater souls. And thus, we understand that disappointing ourselves is not the end of the journey. It is, in fact, a rare opportunity, the chance to begin again, better, clearer, freer from the pride that only the experience of falling can destroy. Each accepted mistake, each learned lesson, each conscious rising brings us closer to what the ancients called arete, the excellence of the soul. And before this new understanding, a powerful, subtle, inevitable question arises. If we can learn even from our falls, how then can we cultivate a mind that remains invincible, calm, and strong in every circumstance? In times of calm, any mind can seem strong. But it is in storms, in unexpected blows, in irreparable losses that true inner strength is revealed. The invincible mind is not the one that never feels pain. It is the one that feels deeply, and yet remains steadfast. It weeps, it bleeds, it grieves. And yet, like a mountain surrounded by a raging storm, it never bends. Building such a mind is the supreme art of the wise. And for the Stoics, it is more than an ideal. It is a duty. Marcus Aurelius, facing wars, betrayals, plagues, never prayed for an easier life. Instead, he asked for a mind capable of enduring everything with dignity. He wrote to himself, "Do not pray for things to happen as you wish, but wish for strength to endure what happens." Stoic greatness is born from this reversal of perspective. Life doesn't need to be gentler. You must become stronger. The first foundation for cultivating an invincible mind is the active acceptance of reality. Do not fight against what is unchangeable. Do not waste energy lamenting the inevitable. Acceptance is not resignation. It is intelligence. It is seeing the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. It is embracing life with all its pains and glories as a loyal ally in the refining of the soul. This acceptance must be accompanied by daily training of perception. As Epictetus said, "It is not events themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them." When something painful happens, the automatic reaction is to coat the event with judgments. This is terrible. This is unfair. I did not deserve this. The invincible mind questions these labels. It asks, what is this, objectively? What can I learn here? In doing so, it transforms pain into wisdom and loss into an opportunity for expansion. Another pillar is mental preparation for adversity, the exercise the Stoics called premeditatio malorum. Consciously envisioning hardships before they come, not to live in anxiety, but to strengthen oneself. The one who prepares for loss, betrayal, illness, and death when they arrive, and they will, meets them not as a victim, but as a warrior ready for battle. The practice of resilience begins with the small daily trials, an unexpected delay, an unfair criticism, a minor loss. Each small discomfort is training ground for the soul. If you learn to remain serene in those moments, you are training your mind to endure the great storms with nobility. And we must never forget, the invincible mind is not cold or insensitive. It feels everything, but chooses how to respond. It is like a commander who feels fear in his troops before battle, yet inspires them to advance regardless. The invincible mind harbors no illusions. It knows there will be pain. But it also knows that pain is not an uncontrollable monster. It is a silent master, a phase of evolution. Historical examples serve as beacons along this path. Think of Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps. Amid unimaginable suffering, he discovered that even when everything is taken from a man, there remains the last freedom, the freedom to choose his attitude. This freedom is the seed of the invincible mind. And to consolidate this daily construction, I propose a Stoic morning ritual. Upon waking, say to yourself, "Today, I will encounter ingratitude, lies, envy, cruelty. None of this will touch me, because I know that human nature is such, and I choose to remain whole." This simple act of preparation, done sincerely, arms your mind to resist without hardening, to feel without collapsing. Thus, with patience, discipline, and courage, the mind becomes like an unbreakable wall against the winds of adversity, a luminous fortress that does not deny suffering, but transcends it with serene dignity. And now, upon reaching these silent heights of the soul, one final question arises, like the glow of a solitary star in the night sky. If we are capable of building such an invincible mind, what then is the ultimate purpose of this journey of inner fortification? We have crossed deserts, climbed inner mountains, faced invisible storms, and shaped our mind like a blacksmith shapes glowing iron. And now, before this silent and arduous labor, the deepest question arises. For what purpose? Why endure so much pain with dignity? Why polish oneself day after day, night after night, like a sculptor who is never satisfied? What, after all, is the true purpose of strengthening the soul? The ancient sages, in their sublime simplicity, would answer, the purpose is to be worthy of existence. Not in the selfish sense of winning trophies and applause, but in the supreme sense of honoring the privilege of being alive, of becoming one with the universal reason that permeates all things, of living in such a way that life itself, in all its fragility and brevity, is elevated into a silent work of art. Marcus Aurelius, isolated in the cold of military campaigns, wrote to himself, "What prevents you from acting according to reason? Nothing. Then act according to reason and fulfill your role in the great drama of life." Strengthening the soul, therefore, is preparing to participate consciously in this drama, not as a lost extra, but as a noble actor who knows his role and plays it with honor until the final act. The ultimate purpose is to transcend the narrow ego, the petty pursuit of comfort and recognition, and to become a living spark of the universal order. To be a channel through which justice, wisdom, courage and compassion flow into the world. To be, as Seneca said, a friend of humanity, even knowing that humanity will often be ungrateful, blind, and hostile. But there is something even more sublime. Strengthening the soul is the silent preparation to accept death, not as defeat, but as coronation. Not as a tragedy, but as a crossing. When the soul has been trained not to fear pain, not to cling to illusions, not to depend on applause, it is ready to depart in peace. Like a soldier who, having completed his mission, lays down his arms with a serene smile. Strengthening the soul is also a gift to the world. Each soul that becomes stronger, more lucid and freer makes the entire world a little more luminous. Perhaps you will never know how many lives you touched with your silent example. Perhaps you will never see the fruit of the seeds you planted, but that does not matter. What matters is to plant every day, even in barren fields, even under the indifference of those who pass by. The purpose is to live in such a way that, at the final moment, you can say to yourself without regret, "I was faithful to what was highest within me, nothing more, nothing less." To achieve this, I propose one final practice. Every morning upon awakening, ask yourself, "Today, what can I do to be worthy of the life I have been given?" And at night, before closing your eyes, ask, "Was I worthy today?" If the answer is yes, even in small gestures, you will be fulfilling the highest calling there is. And thus, the strengthening of the soul reveals its deepest reason. It is not to avoid suffering, not to win admiration, not to become invulnerable to the world. It is to live like a flame that, even surrounded by the wind, never ceases to illuminate. It is to be, in every moment, the best version of yourself. Not because the world demands it, but because your soul, silent and eternal, knows it was born for this. Now, after this long journey through the invisible walls of existence, we arrive before the final and most solemn door, the responsibility of being the guardian of your own soul, because in the end, no one is coming to save you. No institution, no hero, no master. There will be no crowds applauding your silent, correct choices, nor any courts to judge your conscience. Just you, just your soul, That small flame traveling through the centuries, which will one day need to look itself in the mirror and answer, was I faithful? The final calling is simple and brutal. Take command of yourself. Become the unshakable sentinel of your thoughts, your values, your actions. Do not outsource this responsibility. Do not hand over your peace to anyone. As Epictetus once said, if you wish to be free, learn to serve only true reason. Be the silent sovereign of yourself, the tireless builder of your inner fortress. To be the guardian of your soul is to resist the corrosive forces that assault us daily. Fear, envy, vanity, despair. It is to protect the flame of dignity even on stormy nights. It is to decide every morning that you will not live by accident, nor be just a leaf blown by the winds of circumstance. You will be root, you will be rock, you will be light. To be the guardian of your soul is to know that there will be falls, and still not give up. It is to understand that there will be days when your will falters, when the temptation of easy comfort feels irresistible, when loneliness feels unbearable. And even on those days, even in those abysses, to choose to rise again, to choose once more to say yes to your higher self. This calling requires courage, because it is not easy to live for eternity in a world obsessed with the temporary. It is not easy to cultivate eternal virtues amid rush, shallowness, and the noise of mediocrity. It is not easy, but it is necessary. And more than that, it is sacred. To become the guardian of your soul is the most revolutionary act a human being can commit, because a man or woman who governs themselves with wisdom and compassion transforms the world around them without speeches or battles. Their silent life becomes a bridge, a torch, a living hope for those still walking in the dark. So today, in light of this calling, I ask you, are you ready to accept this mission? Are you willing to protect, refine, and honor the flame that burns inside you, even when no one is watching? Are you prepared to live not for external approval, but for the silent approval of your own conscience? If your soul answered yes, even if in a whisper, even if trembling, then know this: you've already begun. You're already on the path. And every step from this moment on, even the stumbles and falls, will be a step towards something that time, death, and oblivion will never erase. You, and only you, are the guardian of your soul. Protect it, honor it, and make of it a light that never fades. If you've made it this far, know this: you are part of a rare and valuable brotherhood. Those who don't run from truth, who are not afraid to look inward, who choose every single day to be better than they were yesterday. If this journey resonated with you, if even one word sparked a flame in your soul, I invite you to leave your mark. Like this video, so that this message can reach other souls longing for meaning. Comment below, share the reflection that touched you most, or simply write, I choose to be the guardian of my soul. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this is only one of many journeys we'll take together. Your engagement is what keeps this flame alive. Let's build together a fortress of strong, free, and invincible souls. I'll see you in the next crossing.